Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation Season 1 begins by showing Rudeus' background, starting since he has not been reincarnated. It is said that there is a 34-year-old man who has locked himself in his room for 20 years after being a victim of bullying. Since then, he has lived in solitude and has no work. One day, both of his parents died. Unfortunately, Rudeus not attend the funeral and instead was busy alone in his room. Relatives and family who knew Rudeus did not come to the funeral of his own parents, finally kicked him out of the house. Rudeus wandered alone on the street until he saw a female student arguing with two male students. Not only that, but he then realized that a high-speed truck was coming toward them. Without thinking, he jumped in front of the truck to stop its speed and not hit the students. On the other side of the world, a husband and wife named Paul Greyrat, a swordsman, and healer, Zenith, have just given birth to a child. The boy named Rudeus is the reincarnation of a man who previously died because he was hit by a truck. Paul's maid and school friend, Lilia, assisted the husband and wife pair in looking after Rudeus. After Rudeus was 6 months old, he finally had consciousness. Uniquely, Rudeus still remembers his previous life and realizes that he is currently reincarnated. Rudeus was astonished and amazed by his new world. He slowly understands that his parents have their own strengths. This happened after Rudeus saw his father showing his sword skills while Zenith healed his wound after falling from a chair by using magic. Rudeus realized that he was reincarnated into the world of sword and sorcery. Rudeus was eager to learn magic, even though he was still very young. He used the reading ability from his previous life to start studying the magic books of Paul and Zenith. From these books, he then knows that the capacity of magic or mana has been determined since the person was born. Meanwhile, to be able to cast magic, he must cast a spell. Rudeus became more and more curious about trying magic, so he cast one of the spells from the book to draw out water. That success made him excited to try again to cast the same spell, until finally Rudeus found he could cast magic without the need to cast a spell and only by using his imagination. But when he was about to try again, the mana he had seemed drained, and so was his energy. He then fell and fainted. After a few years, Rudeus practiced more and more and discovered new facts about magic. One of them was a mistake in the book he read about mana. He realized that mana is not determined when a person is born, but will continue to increase as the person uses magic more and more. Besides that, some people can cast magic without spells like him. Even so, Rudeus realized that not all magic can come out only through imagination. Some magic, such as healing magic, will still require special spells. Rudeus continued to practice the water magic he had previously been able to cast, until finally, he managed to manipulate the water magic to shoot and so on. Rudeus was sure that his mana would increase even more if he practiced often. Even so, he apparently still has trauma from his past life. This can be seen from Rudeus, who often practices magic alone in the warehouse at home than outside the house. One time, Rudeus was practicing casting water cannon magic. At that time, the magic he cast was so great that he finally broke into the warehouse wall. Paul and Zenith rushed to the warehouse after hearing an explosion and thought that a monster had attacked their child. But Zenith saw the magic book Rudeus had read, and realized that Rudeus cast the magic. Zenith felt very happy and proud because a young Rudeus could cast such large magic. She then asked Paul to bring in a magic teacher to train Rudeus, so that in the future, their son could become a great person. But initially Paul refused because apparently they had agreed for Rudeus to become a swordsman like his father. Before the debate between husband and wife heated up, Lilia suggested that Rudeus study magic in the morning and then study swordsmanship in the afternoon. Paul and Zenith agreed with the suggestion. Long story short, Paul and Zenith brought in a magic teacher named Roxy Magurdia. Roxy is a girl of demon origin with a youthful appearance, despite her actual age being over 40 years old. She was initially hesitant and almost refused to teach Rudeus because she thought he was too young. But after Rudeus showed his ability to cast water magic without a spell, Roxy was interested and agreed to teach him magic. That evening, Zenith and Paul invite Roxy to have dinner together. Rudeus realized how his life was now very different from before, and he was determined to do his best. Rudeus and Roxy spent their days practicing magic. In every practice, Rudeus always uses large magic to increase his mana. One night, Roxy told the history of the war that took place 4 centuries ago between the demon Laplace and humans. In that war, A super tribe of demon origin was very feared because he did not hesitate to kill anyone. Roxy says that the super tribe has a special characteristic, namely green hair and a red gem on the forehead, and until now will kill anyone they meet. 1 year has passed. Rudeus has so much mana that he can use magic without fear of running out of mana. Even though his magic training process went smoothly, Rudeus' sword practice was the exact opposite. When Rudeus' 5th birthday, his family celebrated with a small party. At that time, Rudeus received a sword from Paul, a magic book from Zenith, and a wand from Roxy. Right at that moment, Roxy told Rudeus that he would have the final test tomorrow, which meant that magic lessons with her would end soon. The next day as planned, Roxy invites Rudeus to go outside the village to take the final test. Rudeus initially refused because he still had trauma from his previous life and until then had never left the house. But Roxy convinced, even mocked Rudeus for coming with her out of the village, which left Rudeus no other choice. They arrived at a large field, and Roxy told him that they would use cumulonimbus magic in this final test, which would issue a thunderstorm. She asked Rudeus to pay attention to this magic because she could only cast it once. Rudeus then intends to be able to cast this magic very well as a thank you, and at the same time prove himself to Roxy. After he cast the spell, he managed to cast cumulonimbus magic, which was even bigger than Roxy's before. After that, Roxy said there was no more magic that she could teach and decided that Rudeus had passed. Roxy decided to continue the journey after teaching Rudeus and return to wandering. Before leaving, she gave Amamori, which was the protective talisman of demon origin. The first experience of leaving the house with Roxy turned out to successfully make Rudeus' trauma disappear. In the following days, Rudeus had more and more frequently left the house and traveled to the village. Until one day, Rudeus saw 3 men bothering someone. He remembered his father's message to protect the weak, so he chased away the bullies and saved the person. But what he didn't expect, the person he had just saved had green hair, which reminded him of Roxy's story about the super tribe. However, upon closer inspection, Rudeus was sure that the little boy was not from the super tribe because there was no red gem on his forehead. They became acquainted and the child was named Sylph, a half-elf. Sylph then said that he was bullied by the children because of his green hair and that he was thought to be from the super tribe. Rudeus felt guilty because at first he thought the same thing, so he helped clean Sylph's hair using water magic. Sylph is surprised to see Rudeus' ability and begs that he too can learn magic. Months passed. Sylph studied magic with Rudeus until one day, he wanted to be able to cast magic without the need to cast spells. Rudeus, although initially convinced that Sylph wouldn't be able to, still teaches that he only needs to use his imagination. Unexpectedly, Sylph managed to cast magic without spells, just like Rudeus. At that time, it suddenly rained, and a storm fell, so Rudeus took Sylph home. Lilia had prepared warm water for Rudeus to take a bath at home, so she invited Sylph to take a bath together. But strangely, Sylph refuses to take a bath with Rudeus, which makes Rudeus instead force Sylph to take off his clothes. He actually wondered why Sylph was embarrassed when they were both boys. It's just that at that time, Rudeus was surprised and realized he had been wrong all this time. Sylph is actually not a boy but a girl with the full name Sylphiette. Time passed, and at one point Zenith announced her pregnancy. But surprisingly, at the same time, Lilia was pregnant, and it was Paul's child. Paul apologized for having an affair with Lilia, even though it was Lilia who actually teased Paul first. Rudeus felt sorry for hearing Lilia's plan to go back to her hometown, and would most likely die due to a blizzard. He then approached Zenith and lied, saying that Paul actually forced them to have intercourse. Hearing the explanation from his son, Zenith then forgave Lilia and allowed her to stay with them. Long story short, a few months after that, Lilia and Zenith gave birth to 2 daughters named Aisha and Norn. While on the other hand, Rudeus hesitated because his magic ability did not develop. He then plans to continue studying magic at Renoa Magic Academy, but Sylph forbids him. She cries and says she can't be separated from Rudeus. However, Rudeus' desire to continue his education grew stronger when he received a letter from Roxy. Roxy explains that she has mastered high-level magic and suggests that Rudeus come to Renoa Magic Academy if he feels his magical abilities are not developing. The next day, Rudeus revealed his intentions to his parents. He asked Paul and Zenith to all pay for self-schooling at Renoa Magic Academy. Unfortunately, Paul refused the request, so Rudeus decided to work to pay for Sylph's education later. A few days later, their family had a visitor, a beast woman named Ghislaine Dodolia. After introducing Ghislaine as his old friend, Paul suddenly attacks Rudeus and knocks him unconscious with his sword ability. When Rudeus woke up, he was already in the horse carriage with Ghislaine. Ghislaine hands over a letter from Paul which states that Rudeus will work teaching a princess in the city of Roa. Ghislaine promised to teach Rudeus swordsmanship as long as he wanted to teach her about magic. Long story short, they arrived at Roa. Rudeus and Ghislaine meet Reborn Greyrat, who is none other than Paul's brother, who explains that later Rudeus will teach his daughter, Eris. Philip said that Eris was so spoiled and unruly that many magic masters decided to withdraw. Sure enough, when they were introduced, Eris was angry because Rudeus was still so young. She beats Rudeus, who immediately hides in fear. Seeing that, Philip again asked if Rudeus would give up being her teacher, but Rudeus insists on continuing the work and suggests that they plan a kidnapping. Rudeus planned that later when he and Eris were kidnapped, he would explain why learning magic was so important. Philip agreed with the plan. As night fell, Eris and Rudeus were suddenly tied up and taken to the warehouse. At that time, Rudeus easily untied them using magic power, but because Eris didn't have that power, she couldn't untie her hands. Rudeus took the opportunity to convince Eris to learn magic, but Eris persisted and called out to Ghislaine for help. The commotion made one of their kidnapping bandits come and beat her. At first Rudeus was very happy because the bandits were acting like real kidnappers, but he heard the kidnappers' words about the plan to kill them. Rudeus realized that they were the real kidnappers, and he tried to escape through the window using earth magic. Even though he already knew that the kidnapping was real, Rudeus still insisted he didn't want to help or heal Eris. Eris continued to make a fuss, so one of the bandits tried to re-enter. Eris, finally feeling scared, pleads with Rudeus to save her and promises to obey all of his orders. Finally, Rudeus healed Eris's wounds and took her away from the warehouse. After escaping, Eris still intends to break her promise to obey all of Rudeus' words. But when she sees Rudeus is about to leave her alone, she is afraid again and truly promises to keep her words. Long story short, they both returned to Roa's city and were awaited by one of the Philip family servants. As they approached the maid, suddenly a bandit ambushed and abducted Eris again. Rudeus and the servant tried to catch her back, and Rudeus used earth magic to trap the bandits. Unexpectedly, the servant actually offered money to Rudeus to release the bandits. It turned out that the maid had been conspiring to kidnap Eris. Rudeus wasn't tempted by the offer, even though the amount would be enough to pay for his and Sylph's schooling at Renoa Magic Academy. Rudeus tried to outwit the bandits, and at the same time, asked Ghislaine for help by releasing magic into the sky. The magic that became the fireworks caught the attention of Ghislaine, who immediately approached the place where the bandits had escaped and started attacking Rudeus with swords. Rudeus' sword skills were so low, he couldn't fight the bandits before Ghislaine came to the rescue. Ghislaine immediately killed the two bandits, which made Rudeus quite stunned. After that, she caught the maid. After arriving home, Eris kept her promise and accepted Rudeus as her magic teacher. The days passed, and Rudeus then taught Eris and Ghislaine about magic. Not only that, but Rudeus taught the two of them to read and some other lessons. Instead, Ghislaine taught Eris and Rudeus swordsmanship. Eris always looks bored when it comes to lessons other than magic. Meanwhile, she actually has more sword skills than Rudeus. Eris could even master various sword techniques in a short amount of time. Even so, Rudeus was frustrated that Eris didn't want to learn to read either. He then asked Ghislaine for help to persuade Eris. Finally, Ghislaine told him about her past when she was still in the Black Wolf Fangs group. Paul and Zenith were part of the group too. When Zenith and Paul marry, the group disbands, and Ghislaine goes on the adventure alone. But in her adventure, Ghislaine has difficulty because she can neither read nor count. She was often deceived by the sword so that the money was not left. Ghislaine's fate was so pathetic because she had no money and ended up starving. Ghislaine's story inspires Eris to learn to read and count. After that, they continued their studies until several months had passed. One day, Eris, Rudeus, and Ghislaine went to the market in Roa town after getting tired of studying. There, Rudeus saw the floating fortress belonging to Perugius Dola, a hero who managed to kill the demon Laplace 4 centuries ago. Rudeus was reportedly still living in the castle. The scene moves to Eris's birthday, and Rudeus gives some of his teaching time to Edna, who will teach Eris how to dance. Because at her birthday party, Eris, as a noble, must be able to dance. The reduced teaching time gave Rudeus more free time, so he began to study in Philip's family library. Rudeus finds a magic book but can't understand the language, which is the language of demon origin. He then remembered Roxy, the former teacher from demon origin, so he asked her for help in learning the language. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Eris' dance practice doesn't go smoothly, and Edna asks Rudeus for help. At that time, Rudeus had not yet succeeded in learning the demon language, so he agreed to accompany Eris to learn to dance. On the other hand, Roxy sent a book to help Rudeus learn the demon language. Long story short, Eris's birthday arrived and was celebrated with so much luxury. Unfortunately, when Eris was about to do the first dance, she fell down, so she was criticized by the guests. Seeing that, Rudeus became pitiful and asked Eris to dance with him. He then used a sword technique to help Eris dance better, and it worked. Eris and Rudeus amaze the guests and make their families very happy. After the party was over, Rudeus, Eris, and Ghislaine were in the room. Rudeus congratulated them because they both had passed magic lessons, and then presented them with magic wands. Ghislaine gave Eris a ring because she had graduated from sword learning. 2 years passed, and when it was Rudeus's birthday, Eris and Ghislaine planned a surprise party for him. The surprise moved Rudeus, especially since Eris gave him a magic wand, named Aqua Harsha, as a gift. Meanwhile, a black cloud covered the entire city. Roxy, who saw the black cloud and sensed that something was wrong with Rudeus, so she rushed over to Roa. The black cloud caught the attention of Demon Emperor Kishirika Kishirisu and Dragon King Ostad. Rudeus Dola sensed something was wrong with the black cloud and asked his men, Aramanfi, to investigate. He then ordered to kill anyone who got in the way. Meanwhile, Rudeus intends to try the magic wand from Eris to take out Cumulonimbus. But just then, someone suddenly came to attack him. Luckily, Ghislaine saves him, and it is revealed that the mysterious assailant is Aramanfi. Aramanfi blamed Rudeus for the black cloud, but Ghislaine swore that Rudeus had nothing to do with it. Finally, Aramanfi believed Ghislaine's oath and left them. At the same time, an explosion occurred in the sky, causing teleportation to occur. Unfortunately, Rudeus, Eris, Ghislaine were hit by the explosion. This is the end of Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation Season 1. The moral that can be learned from this anime is the desire to learn and change lives. Rudeus is eager to change his life from his previous life, so he was desperately studying and practicing. So are we. Never be satisfied with the knowledge we have today. Keep learning and honing yourself to be a better person.